What are we waiting for?
Was it the Arts Council that Deetha's asked? Mm-hmm. President.
All right. Looks like everybody's sitting here raring to go, but we can't go for raring, so let's go ahead and get going. Welcome to the regular town council meeting, Town of Cave Creek, Arizona, Monday, July 15th, 2019. Would like to, let's see, I see a visitor from across the political boundary. Mr. Farrar, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public announcements. Just want to ask everybody once again, if you haven't cleared your chamomile, please at least get away from your house and away from the street. We got a fuse running through town until the rains come. More people here tonight than has been here in the last several meetings, so hopefully some of y'all will take that to heart if you haven't done it yet. I've got nothing else. Anything else from Tom? All right. Call to the public. We have two.
Eileen Wright.
Ernie, did you do roll call?
Oh, we didn't do roll. Well, we did. Yeah, we did earlier. You weren't here.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Can the record
I'm here,
reflect that
President.
Mr. McGuire is now with us? Okay, you're covered, Tom.
Thank you.
May I contact? Good evening. Eileen Wright, Cave Creek resident. We are all now living in a clear and present danger of an imminent wildfire. Yet our town does not have a wildfire prevention ordinance. This is very interesting to me because on the website there is information about fire, but it is not pertinent to our area. The town website, it refers to things that are not even in this area at all. I have brought a sample of something. This is the absolute, what it looks like now, the desert chamomile, which was green with yellow balls, now is dried and dead. And I've learned a great deal about fires lately from Chief Kratz. Each one of these little balls is equivalent to 1,000 match heads. That's how flammable this is when you find it in your yard, on the areas around town. So if you were to get this would go on fire, each one of these little balls would be the same as lighting 1,000 match heads. The fire would be intense and would destroy the area. Chief Kratz has been asked many questions that he answered for me. He said, how fast does a fire move? He says he's been involved in fires that have moved up to 45 miles an hour. That means you can't outrun it, you can't get on a horse and outrun it, and you'll be lucky if you can get away from it in a vehicle. We have many things that we have had in our purview that are misrepresented. Say, it's incredibly hard, for example, for a fire to be started by a cigarette butt, almost impossible. Most, and this is important, most man-made fires in this area are started with sparks generated from trailers or vehicles, dragging chains, or from people grinding metal or welding. Actually, we have had 5 to 6 fires start exactly from that type of accident. The extreme fire danger that we are currently facing mandates that this council immediately enact a Cave Creek wildfire prevention ordinance, declaring it an emergency and put it into effect now. I was recently told that the council was considering having a gathering at the library to discuss this ordinance or to go forward or not. That isn't acceptable. The residents need that ordinance in place now because our life is in danger and our property is in danger. I have drafted an ordinance for your review to use or not to use, but it brings forward the two main reasons that fires are started in this area.
3 minutes.
We just discussed them. Anyway, I have drafted this policy, and I urge you to put politics and personalities aside and take care of the residents of this town and give them the protection they need. I will put copies of this ordinance and I will give them to Carrie. Some will be over on the table for your view if you'd like them later. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have some that you could pass out to each of us now?
Is that permissible?
Can it be? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Ellen.
Bruce, Arlen. Thank
Good
you.
evening. Many of you have seen the banners around the town. There are two banners for the Dark Skies event 1 week from tonight at the library, July 22nd, 7 o'clock. We have two amazing speakers. I just wanted to say it in a public forum. I've talked to some of the people here. We have two incredible main speakers. Jeff Hall, who's the PhD doctor of astronomy who runs the Lowell Observatory. He's the director. John Barentine, also an astronomer, PhD level man who runs the International Dark Skies Association. And a couple of other very brief speakers, an incredible presentation, amazing photographs of the deep, dark space taken right here in Cave Creek. And we're trying to get a big crowd. We want to become a dark skies town. Many of us do. I've gotten a lot of support, if not all support verbally, from council, from the mayor, from our sheriff, or not our sheriff, our marshal. And I'm inviting everybody to come. We expect to have a very big crowd. Everybody here, please. I think you're going to really learn a lot. It's all about education, and you're going to learn about what does it take to become a designated, certified dark skies community, not just in writing, but the real deal. And we'll join forces with Flagstaff, Sedona, even Fountain Hills, big benefits they're having out there. And we're going to have a big question and answer period. So everybody can be satisfied, okay? That's it. See you there.
Thank you, Bruce.
Town manager report?
Mayor, members of council, I've heard from nearly every one of you, almost, and met with a couple council members along with other staff about the concerns you individually and as a community we have about the wildfire and the prevention of any kind of fire, but particularly wildland fire in the town, because we are at that urban wildland interface. So we put together a web page that has information for the community to explain what the town of Cave Creek has in place already what we're doing, and then information for the residents and the property owners and the business owners to take action to protect their property and to limit the risk of fire. So I can't see that screen all that well, but if you go to the homepage, the big red wildland fire prevention tips, I can read that. When you click on that, it takes you to the page with the information and the recommendations regarding fire prevention. So at the top, we talk about knowing what to do if there's a brush fire and if it breaks out, how to protect your property. Don't go so fast, Brian, I can't read that fast.
Can't see.
How to protect your property. And we put a lot more detail in the website. But tonight, we do have a one-page, two-sided handout that is one of the links on the website that's sort of a summary, I call it sort of a cheat sheet that talks about your defensible space and fire-resistant materials and how to stay informed. It has information about our website, but on the back of it, it talks about the zones and where and how you're clearing your property to keep your property safe from fire, whether it's something, so there's some recommendations as you go down to the next level about ensuring you and your contractors are taking the proper fire safety precautions, and so the recommendations are there as well, along with the details of the tips for wildland fire prevention. And in the memo that we sent out on Friday, there is a summary of the issues where Cave Creek needs help from all of the property owners and the residents and the businesses. The town participates in a county-wide emergency management program, and we have a plan. We are signed up for the mutual aid. So if there's a fire, any emergency, we have other municipalities, fire departments at the ready to assist. And they come automatically, depending on the type and size of a fire that we might have. But it actually echoes some of the things that Mrs. Wright commented on, that you do not throw your cigarette butts out the window of your vehicle or on any of your property, whether you own it or not. You do not drag chains when you're towing. Those are the kinds of things that spark fires. We've had them. The fire department representatives are here. The town marshal have been involved and seen fortunately, in the town limits, just small fires. But if you look just to the south of us, there was a relatively large fire large fire in a relatively short period of time that occurred in the city of Phoenix on the west side of the road that burned more than 300 acres. And then the biggest issue that we have now is the globe chamomile. And we had a presentation a few council meetings ago that explained what it is, what it looks like, and how you want to remove that from your property. And so we're encouraging the property owners to get involved and get out there and, at a minimum, take a weed whacker, cut it down so that the oxygen isn't coming from underneath, it's down on the ground, and if you have the ability to clear it up. And so on the back of the memo that was sent out on Facebook, you can share that with other Facebook users, and has photos on the back for what the globe chamomile looks like, what it looks like when you take it down, and when you're hauling it away. So we're urging the community to get involved and to work on their property and do their part in this community. If you go towards the end of that page, there is a link to the presentation that was made before council a few meetings ago about identifying the invasive weeds that we have in the community. The globe chamomile is one, but there's also some guidelines for removing desert broom and salt cedar. So there's a lot of information there. I think if you take the time to go through it and work little by little at your property and see what you might need to do to protect your own property, together we can make this a safer community. And then we are looking into putting together a panel of experts that we could have a community meeting to answer any other additional questions the residents have. People from the fire department, from emergency management, from Tonto Forest, et cetera, and pulling them together at a community meeting to kind of go through any other suggestions or proposals, just answer your questions, and we'll pull that together as soon as we can. I think that's it.
Moving right along, consent agenda.
No, advanced agenda items. I know it's not on here, but I'd like to propose one,
Okay.
since it usually is on here, and it's
Can I
not.
let her do that, Bill?
Why don't we, I thought we have.
We, no.
No,
No, we can't.
well,
Wait.
Sorry.
Wait,
Unless it's
wait.
on there. Council? No, it's not there.
It's not
Thank you, Karen.
Okay.
under public announcements. You could add something.
Could you phrase it as a public announcement?
sure.
Flexibility
on an
is my
agenda.
hallmark.
Okay, we've had a lot said tonight, about the health, safety, and welfare of residents in the town. And at this time, I'd like to have the staff to begin assessing the capabilities of the existing organizations to A, respond and suppress brush fires originating within the town limits with the strategy to prevent these from destroying property or harming residents. B, respond to major incidents, especially those originating outside of town limits, especially in the Tonto National Forest or state lands. 1, advise of any planning and need for pre-planning. Assess the needs to analyze and improve the fire water systems to defend the town. 2, access the effectiveness and make recommendations regarding communications during emergencies. A. B, to continuously educate new and existing residents on property owners, means to protect their property, legal consequences to individuals who initiate a wildfire, and recommend policies and any code changes that needed to be to defend the town from wildland fires. I've lived here 31 years. I have never seen the chamomiles this way. I think it's going to get worse. And so many of us have acreage, and some of us find it almost impossible to truly clear out a lot of it around their property to the extent of the cost. So it's time that we become more offensive, or, create an offense to ensure that we, the town, are able to protect our people immediately. So,
Mr. Mayor, that was really a response to the call of the public, which is thoroughly appropriate.
right, but I want to have it put on an agenda.
You can do that.
Right, and these are some of the things, a future agenda item to coincide with where we're at immediately, particularly in the codes.
Now, can I move on to the consent?
Yes,
agenda?
sir.
Cancellation of August 5th, 2019 regular council meeting. Number 2, approval of June 3rd, 2019 regular town council meeting minutes. Number 3, approval of June 17th, 2019 regular town council meeting minutes. 4, approval of the June 19th, 2019 special joint town council and water advisory committee meeting minutes. Approval of the June 26th, 2019 special town council meeting minutes. And council activity, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Tom, thank you. General agenda item number 1, Harmony Hollow, presentation by Melissa Paxton, former resident, lead coordinator of a local community effort To preserve Harmony Hollow, a 30-acre parcel bounded on 3 sides by the Spur-Cross Conservation Area, which is currently for sale, not the Spur-Cross, but Harmony Hollow. More than 400 community members are engaged in a campaign to preserve the land through a conservation purchase and stewardship plan. The town of Cave Creek, through council members Catherine Royer and Paul Diefendorfer, the Desert Foothills Land Trust, and others are currently exploring potential options for partnership in this effort. I'll bet you're going to talk to us.
Thank you very much. I haven't been here in about 20 years, and I'm glad to see the sign still looks good. I used to live at Harmony Hollow. I lived there for 12 years, and I'm back because I care so much about this property. You can see on the screen an aerial view of Harmony Hollow with the floodplain that is so crucial to the Spur-Cross Ranch Conservation Area. I've been out there for 2 weeks kind of looking around, and there's just an incredible amount of wildlife. Since I left, it's been restored even more. There's a lot more trees in the creek. The area where Richard and I used to cross the creek on the cable chair is completely overgrown with sycamores and cottonwoods. And it's amazing to me. I was actually told that people don't care about preservation anymore in Cave Creek. And I don't think that's true. Do people care about preservation in Cave Creek? Does anybody care? People care, and they want to know how we can add this to the preserve, because if we don't, we might not really be all that happy with the result. And I just want to remind you a little bit about what's happened out there in the past. The area is completely surrounded by Native American sites, and that's part of why we were able to preserve Spur-Cross Ranch itself, because of those sites. But Harmony Hollow doesn't have sites like that, but it has a long history of mining. And if I can get my thing to cooperate with me, you can see that that area was already almost destroyed. All the large trees, the hardwood trees, were cut down to power the mine and smelt ore, and they used cyanide in the water to get the ore leached out. So all those trees were cut down at one time back there, and now they're back after 150 years of people not doing that to it. And I'm just really proud to come back and see that it has actually improved over time, that there's no houses out there, that it doesn't have a golf course on it. And we sounded the alarm about this now over 20 years ago when we first started hearing about the golf course. And it was shocking to all of us to think what could happen. But thanks to a bunch of fanatics, we preserved it. We decided to tax ourselves to pay for it. We got money from Governor Hall, was extremely useful in helping us, but ultimately they raised the price, and we had to come up with $6 million to pay for this, and it was worth it. And I was looking at some Land Trust Alliance statistics today about Colorado. Pine, Colorado, and Evergreen, Colorado are two towns that are side by side, like Cave Creek and Carefree. For every dollar they spend on preservation, they get $4 to $12 back in revenue with tourism, because their mountainsides are beautiful. And they decided not to put houses completely surrounding their towns. And there's value in that. There's economic value in that. It's not just about being a tree hugger. It's about actual value to the town that lasts forever. This is forever, just like Spur-Cross was. And, you know, some of the same people are working on it. And what I think is so awesome is when we voted for this, I went out and I rounded up a bunch of young people who'd never voted before, and now they're in their 30s and 40s, and they're still here, and they care, and they need to get on board, because it can't just be all of us older people who are doing this work. You know, Jeff Cross, who many of you knew and cared for, moved out to Harmony Hollow in the early 70s. and he had his Bell Foundry out there. When he tragically died, his family set up a foundation for him at the high school that's been going on for now over 40 years, giving money to high school artist students, and every single person they've given that scholarship to has become a professional artist. So having lived out there for 12 years myself and being married to Richard Mako, who made these wonderful gates, I have a great appreciation for the Cross family, for the money that they spent keeping the place up for the memory of their brother. And also because, you know, it created an opportunity for us to live there, and I'll cherish it always. Most of you know where this is, but if you don't, there's the Harmony Hollow. It's the old house, it's the Bell Foundry, and then it's directly in the middle of Spur Cross Ranch. So if a house is built there, if it sells for development, which it could sell tomorrow, it will be in the middle of your view, and chances are whoever lives there won't really be like we were, and they won't want to ride that cable chair, so they'll think about a bridge. And I have to remind you all that when we were fighting for Spur Cross Ranch, the bridge was north of Harmony Hollow, and then it was covering the Jewel of the Creek. And that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to have 10,000 cars going over the Jewel of the Creek every day. And they thought they could have a low water crossing right there. And it was going to cost them $1 million for the Army Corps of Engineer and FEMA survey. So anybody that buys Harmony Hollow may have that exact same problem. I see it as the lifeblood of the conservation area. That creek matters. People don't need to be driving across it. They don't need to be pulling themselves across on the cable. Those days are over, and that chapter has passed. I had the idea that maybe it could be a sculpture park, selfishly, because Richard, my late husband, still has sculpture laying around out there, and I thought, let's stand it up and be proud. But I have abandoned that agenda. That was my selfish agenda. It needs to be preserved entirely with no buildings, no possibility of a visitor center or a parking lot or anything, including what I thought would be a good idea, because I have been listening to your constituents, and that's what they want. They want nothing out there. And that leaves everybody with a clear agenda of what the goal is. We don't need to be thinking about, what should we do with that land? We don't have to do anything. We need to take the house down, and we need to let it be restored. The same with the property across the street there that some people call the man cave. That's another whole can of worms, in my opinion, but it should also be included in the conservation area somehow. And this is what we run across, because some people want more money perhaps than the appraised value of the land. So for a few $100,000, we can lose this forever. And that's what I am trying to point out to all of you, that here's the Land Trust Preserves. They're all, see that little yellow thing? That's Harmony Hollow. The Land Trust is a great organization. They already preserve a lot of land. You know, you guys and the state could act on this and try to preserve this, make an offer to the Cross family. There's a number of possibilities. I'm just trying to open up the discussion. I don't have the answer. All I have is my history. I have crossing the creek, you know, when the driveway looks like a waterfall. This is what people will have to deal with if they decide to build a house out there. And I think instead of it, you know, looking like a waterfall, it should look like a preservation area where animals come to drink, where fish, you know, how do those fish come back when the creek is totally dry and then all of a sudden there they are again? These are some things that you can't find anywhere else. This is 10% of what was used to be here. 90% of riparian areas are gone in Maricopa County. This is the last piece of the puzzle of Spur Cross Ranch Conservation Area. And I know about it, you know, I've been evangelizing about this. The Land Trust can't pay more than the appraised value. It's against the law. and probably you can't either. We need a tax attorney. I've had some really smart people advising me about how this can be done, and it can be done. So I'm working on it. I hope you all will be behind this effort. Catherine has been fantastic. Thank you, Catherine, for bringing this to your attention. And I want to clear up one other thing before I stop. I have been doing what I do of what would it look like if somebody bought that and they thought that that would look good out there. And there's already a house out there that doesn't look particularly good. And you can't always tell people, get a good architect, make it look good. You can't always tell people, don't try to build a bridge, that's too hard. And if you build it on the side that looks good, where there's no flooding going on, then you might end up with houses right in the parking lot of the conservation area like this. So when people see that, some people have actually thought that's what I want to have happen, because I have posted some of these pictures and they're like, what? I saw pictures of houses or tents. That's not what I want. I just want everybody to know I would never, ever advocate developing on Spur Cross Ranch over my dead body. I don't live here. I kind of come back and forth part-time. So if you could only do that and turn the page 20 years and come back and see all these cranes in the middle of Cave Creek, cranes up and down Scottsdale Road, they're not making this anymore. This is the last of its kind, and we need to finish preserving Spur Cross Ranch because we're not done. So if you guys can put that on your thinking caps, because I'm racking my brains of how to do this. There's a lot of smart people in this room. I keep talking about this, and it's starting to come together. I've got some really good allies, but we need you guys. We need you to be behind this. We need to know that when we raise money and tax ourselves, or when there's an open space fund, that money goes to open space and it goes to Spur Cross, not to anything else, no matter what. Because that's what we did, that's what we tried to do. And it really matters if you take those dollars and you put them over here, and then this ends up getting houses on it. So that's my spiel. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
That was Tom, in case you didn't know.
Tom, can I make a
Yeah.
comment? Tom has been involved in the process. He's been to one or more of our meetings. But I also know that Vicki Preston from the Desert Foothills Land Trust is in the audience. And I was hoping that she could say a few words as well, give us some background on what the Land Trust has done to try to preserve this property.
Good evening, I'm Vicki Preston. I'm the Executive Director of Desert Foothills Land Trust. Harmony Hollow's been on our preserve as well, as I think everybody here knows what the property is and knows it's important. The Land Trust does too. And we've been working for years, several years in fact, with the landowners and trying to acquire this. As Melissa mentioned, as a nonprofit, we are bound by the appraisal, the appraised value. We were able to, in 2016, to work with the landowner to get an appraisal, and unfortunately, we just were missing on the numbers. So, we let them know we will be here. We understand it's your property. You do what you need to do with it, but we're here. The Land Trust will remain as someone who'd like to own this in perpetuity. And so then in 2018, they came back with the market coming up, figuring maybe if we do another appraisal, maybe it'll get us to where we need to be, and unfortunately just fell short yet again. So that's where we're at. We're kind of, as a land trust, a little bit stuck, and that's why what Melissa is doing is so important, because she's moving the ball forward where we can't right now. So that's really where we're at. We're helping Melissa in effort wherever we can.
Can I say one more thing? The Land Trust isn't a bank. So I've been approached by people going, hey, I have this land, get them to buy it too. And I'm just going to charge another $1 million. The Land Trust is not a bank, and we need to support them and donate money to them, because they're taking care of it forever. And you have 17 preserves?
25.
25 preserves now. And so, if you need something to do to help somebody out or volunteer, please get a hold of Vicki, because she's doing the hard work. I'm just kind of looking at it from a distance. But I can see that the Land Trust is aging out, and here's all these young people. So get your kids involved, get the young people in town to support her.
Melissa's a great cheerleader.
It would seem, since you're bound and you can't pay more than appraised value, that if they donated to you, it wouldn't do any good for this particular property.
No,
So they're going to have to find a way to make up the difference.
not necessarily.
Does that even work?
Not
No?
really.
Yeah.
It'd still be knowingly, participating in something that could be considered private benefit is the issue. So that's why what she's doing is so important, is trying to figure out another way. As a nonprofit, where we can do a lot of good, we're still a little bit bound. So putting on those thinking caps, finding the right people, finding a creative way to get it done, I think is, we're going to keep continuing to try to do what we can. If it means getting another appraisal, whatever it might be, whatever the landowners would agree to, we'll keep working on our end. But it's so important that Melissa keeps going on her end too. We can kind of keep moving forward and really get this done. It really is an important piece.
Wow, okay. Yeah, look,
Nothing in land conservation is easy.
No, this one doesn't look like it's easy. There is public comment on this side. Do you want to say anything else?
No,
Denise?
any other
Thank you,
questions?
Vicki.
Do we have any? One? Okay.
I filled out this request to speak, and I'm in support of Harmony Hollow, and I am a resident here. I didn't know who to give this to.
Jane across the room.
Looks like we got more than just one now. All right, let's,
Linda Abar? Aber.
I'm Linda Abear. I'm a Cave Creek resident, and I have an email addressed to dear Mayor Bunch and town council members. I have lived my life in the Sonoran Desert and have been an avid hiker for about 47 years now. In the mid-1970s, I was in the habit of driving as many dirt roads in Arizona to their end as I could. I have seen a lot of the desert. One day, my dog and I headed out to find the end of Spur Cross Road. When I topped the hill above the site now known as the Jewel of the Creek, I skidded my car to a dusty stop as my mouth dropped wide open. Stretched out before me was the most stunning view of a pristine and classic Sonoran Desert riparian valley I have ever seen. I was truly enraptured by the beauty of the creek, the huge cottonwood trees and saguaro cactus surrounded by a ring of colorful mountains. Thus was the beginning of a love for a very special and now too rare, precious landscape native to the desert. I often bring family, friends, and visitors to the Conservancy to experience the amazing beauty of this area. Yes, I am happy to make the drive from South Mountain to Cave Creek just for the beauty of this unique area. I urge the Town Council to approve the preservation of the property known as Harmony Hollow. To see a development set down in the middle of the existing conservancy will ruin the calm and peaceful experience of this jewel of a desert oasis. Thank you, Sheila Kolash.
Can I get a cold drink? I'm sorry. Can I get a cold drink?
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Is there a way to read?
Tom Augerton?
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely.
Is that Tom?
Yes.
Tell him to get room service.
He's at a payphone.
Some things don't change.
Something's not.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate just a few minutes of your time to chat with you tonight on the Harmony Hollow issue, or Spur Cross as we call it still. I had the occasion for an invitation to go out with Melissa this week with Gary Schmidt, another one of the original players on Spur Cross Ranch. And you remember that scene in Snow White where Snow White's walking around the forest and all the animals are coming up, and it just looks so contrived. It's Walt Disney, and you've got predators with the prey, and everybody's happy. Well, that's what we had the other night. We had Gila monsters, we had coyotes, we had the javelina, of course, made a token appearance, the fruit bats. And I'm thinking, I've lived here for many, many years, and I haven't seen this much choreography since Fiesta days. And I'm sure it was natural, but it was certainly contrived. The meeting was kind of like getting the old band back, because those of us who are now gray and larger, and I'm not sure our T-shirts will fit us anymore that says, say, Spur Cross Ranch. We actually didn't conduct much business. We sat there for 2.5 hours and talked about just the changing of the light and the sunset. You know all that, and you've heard all that. I just would like to make a couple of points to you, if I can. Everything that's ever been good about Cave Creek or ever worked has not really started in town hall. It has started with the volunteer. Now, you guys are volunteers, obviously, running for political office, so you're part of the matrix. But most of these ideas in Cave Creek started outside this building, and it started with incorporation. We don't have Martha Arnold tonight here for me to make my Holcomb joke about, but the people, John Hepner and others who are still here in the community, had the vision to not have us end up as a Phoenix suburb by helping form the original corporation committee. And if that were easy, we'd find our friends over in New River being successful. So we were lucky we got in back in 1987. And even on its worst day, at its worst time, on its worst issue, I'm sure the staff would agree, it's still been better to have the right of self-governance and self-determination than having a lot of the urban style and decisions we have to the south. What else the volunteers have done over the years besides incorporation was, of course, Spur Cross, which has already been mentioned, but our land use patterns. 1 house per 5 acres, 1 house per 2 acres, 1 house per 1 acre, with chickens, with horses. Betsy Glatz with her goats. Cave Creek is still a place where people can breathe free and have home cottage businesses and still have the animals on the property. So that was all volunteer driven and volunteer protected over the years, which is worth noting. In 2021, 2020, and this year, we can see that volunteers are busy again. You've got Bruce Arlen with the Dark Skies proposal, proposing a model ordinance language. I know I'm more than 3 minutes, but the chair will hopefully indulge me for the years I've logged here. So volunteerism is back. With these 2 specific parcels up here, timing is everything. If you've had a chance to see these 2 parcels, it is Spur Cross Ranch. It's Harmony Hollow by local definition, but how could it not be Spur Cross Ranch? It is the perimeter and border of the watershed that comes through the community that frames all of the more than 2,000 acres that have been preserved for more than 20 years. To not preserve it would be like not having cappuccino after an expensive dinner. It's been a great experience, but we need to finish off this last effort. The smaller of the 2 properties, if you haven't, and I know it's privately owned, and I hope not to be offensive to anybody who owns the property. They know they're remarkable, otherwise they probably would not have originally acquired them, but they're even more remarkable for preservation than they are for development. And I understand people buy private property for fair market value and investment and return on investment. I understand that. But there's a powerful case to be made here by spokespeople from the community about the value of preservation, even for the existing property owners. Before we bought Spur Cross Ranch, we had to annex all this land up here to come into the town in order to have the valuation which stopped John Lang from his golf course, hotels, convention center, and hilltop townhomes up there. So the volunteers were able to go out to the residents and make their case and help that come into the town. I think if the 2 parcels could be successfully purchased, it could be a critical buffer from the activity that the visitors bring to Spur Cross Ranch, especially using the 8-acre, 8.5-acre man cave, as they call it, is maybe the location for the new ranger station. If you've been there, and you probably shouldn't have been, but it's on private property, but I was a guest at Melissa's, the artwork and the ironwork that's there is stunning, and it's picturesque, and it's so Cave Creek that if the property were to sell, and if the owner would be interested in partnering with the town, it could be a great place for the station. The mayor's leaning forward. I need to end up here, which I will. Mr. Mayor, I'm just hoping that the backdrop of desert preservation not become the foreground for exploitation. These lands are small in size, but they're deep in potential impact. Just want to give you a few suggestions, and I'll sit down. You've been very patient.
Actually,
5 minutes.
10 years?
Are you not an attorney?
No, sir.
Were you?
No, sir.
Oh,
My parents were married.
Never mind then. I was going
That was for
to
you.
volunteer you to work with them to figure out how to get through the loophole.
Well, I'm willing to volunteer still, but only unofficially.
Okay, thank you.
No, there's a lot of good attorneys. In fact, P.A. Seitz' husband, the late P.A. Seitz, who in the land trust, her husband, is currently volunteering with Melissa.
Oh, good. Hopefully they'll find a solution.
Just a few final suggestions, if I could. Let's expand Spur Cross Ranch if
We need to move along. We got
can.
budget, we got
Okay.
a big meeting tonight.
I'll send you a letter. Let's do it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Tom.
One more.
Hilda Huntress. Hello, my name is Hilda Huntress, and I have lived in Cave Creek probably 40-plus years. I have brought up 2 children here, as Susan knows, from probably preschool on through through high school. And I kind of I'm in many groups, from mountain biking groups, horseback riding, 4-H club, which I was involved with my daughter and my son in the mountain biking. So I have enjoyed this area. I live off of Spur Cross Road for many years. I have ridden all over Spur Cross. I have enjoyed the Jewel of the Creek with my dog, and I have brought many visitors here. And I say that because I have European relatives that come here and enjoy this. But I've also been a concierge at the Boulders Resort for 15 years. So I have sent, excuse me, I have sent many tourists of all sorts from, I'm going to say, from our wonderful restaurants to our hiking areas to our horseback riding facilities. So I just want to say that this property means a lot to me. It's a passion that I have as far as what my heart tells me, that this place should be preserved. And I feel strongly about that, and I'm really, felt like the taxes that the Spur Cross Conservation Area did provide for this open space, and I'm hoping that, I know that same thing, that you can't pay for something that's, not, I'm going to say that, yeah, it's just something that, technicalities, but I'm hoping that with all the members that we have, almost 400 members to preserve Harmony Hollow, that you guys will support that. So that's all I would have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, as I understand it, we're constrained by the same issues that the DFLT is. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Moving on to agenda item number 2, town case number Z-19-01, Cave Creek Hospital zone change request. Council discussion and consideration to possible approval of town case Z-19-01, Cave Creek Hospital zone change request to amend the town of Cave Creek zoning map per ordinance 2019-04 for 2 parcels, 211-46-034B and 211-46-050B, totaling approximately 4 acres from a desert rural residential DR43 zone to a general commercial GC zone.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm assuming you're going to present since it's planning department.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You good? Okay. Mayor, members of council, this case before you this evening is the first reading of a zone change request. The property is approximately 4 acres south of Carefree Highway between 52nd and 53rd Streets, adjacent to the Sprouts development, currently under construction. The applicant has prepared a conceptual site plan review as part of the case. It's a requirement for any zone change that they do so. Really the purpose of that plan is to show basic information such as access, parking, building location, landscaped areas. They have submitted a formal site plan application request. Was submitted May 30th. It's still under review from staff. It will proceed to the Planning Commission, we assume, in August 15th, and then will be brought back forward to council at that time. So this is the first reading. There will be a second reading for any ordinance change, amendment to the map, then a 30-day effective period before the zone change would become final. This area is part of Area 18, the land use of which is mixed use. It was changed in 2010 by resolution of council. A mixed-use land use allows a zone change application for any zoning category or density. What they're asking for this evening is general commercial. The current zoning is DR 43. So really, that's the question that's before council this evening. Does council feel that it's in the best interests of the town to keep this approximately 4 acres in its existing DR 43, Desert Rural 43, or is it better suited for the town to consider changing the zoning to general commercial, which is what the application is for? And Susan Demmett with Gamage and Burnham is here on behalf of the applicant, and staff will answer any questions mayor and council may have. Thank you.
Question from council? No, we're a quiet group tonight.
I sat through it, so.
It's this chamomile.
Well.
The Chinese chamomile is dozing everybody off. Speaking of Snow White.
Globe chamomile, native to South Africa.
Ernie,
Amen.
Ernie, I have a comment.
Oh, thank you. Councilwoman Royer, please.
I did read the information that was in our council packet, and I have to say that I'm duly impressed by the due diligence that was done by Gamage and Burnham, by having information sent to all residents within a half a mile of the property, by hosting an open house for all of those residents and other people to provide comments on this process. I have to say, I don't know how else we could have done a better job in informing our public and informing our community and getting feedback from the people who live in that neighborhood, which, by the way, only 14 people attended and only 3 people were opposed. So I think overwhelmingly, if I'm not mistaken, the community is in support of this project.
Is there a question in there?
Oh, there is no question in there. It's a statement, unless there are people here in this room who have other opinions.
Yeah, we're going to have public hearing for sure. That's on here. Vice Mayor? Question?
I have a question for Luke. Was there any consideration of an SUP for this?
No, the use, general commercial allows for this type of use without, just by site plan. So a special use is not necessary.
Okay. I was just
That's probably a
thinking
question for the site plan when it comes forward.
It's a little more limited. It doesn't allow other utilization other than what you approve.
General commercial is the zoning category that they are requesting. And in Chapter 3 of the zoning ordinance, it goes through and describes what uses are appropriate in general commercial and by what process they're allowed.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think there's some people in the town that are a little concerned about us changing the zoning on this and then it just becoming whatever, a theme park or whatever the heck. What kind of assurances can we give Mr. Sims?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, sorry, I'm so glad we have a manager who can guide me.
Turn on the microphone, please.
Don't land the aircraft here. So, entitling a property is one of the tools that you have at your disposal that creates significant value for the property. It's a value that many councils don't realize they are creating. What you've asked me, Mayor, is there tools you can have to make sure that value is realized? And your legislature has allowed governments to impose conditions on the approved zoning. You've often heard that you can't contract zone, and you can't. When you make a legislative act, you can't contract to pass that legislative act. But the legislature has said that you can impose a condition on your rezoning, and so tonight, if you wish, this is the first read, you could, and we should ask the applicant if they agree, you can impose a schedule of performance so that if certain actions don't occur by a date certain, you can then have a hearing to revert the property back to DR 43. And I did, before the meeting, talk to Ms. Demmett, and I think they're prepared to agree that if you wish, you could suggest during this first read that we add a condition that says if 3 years after the issuance of a site plan. A building permit is not issued for the micro hospital, that you then will schedule a hearing to revert the property back to DR 43, and I think Susan agrees with that. Is that okay?
Can we do micro hospital and only micro
Yes,
hospital?
you can.
Okay.
Would you like me to come? Good evening. For the record, Susan Demme with Gammage Burnham. And Councilmember Royer, thank you for the compliment on our neighborhood outreach efforts. We try very hard. We very rarely get complimented on that aspect of our applications. And so that,
Well, I noticed.
that my planners at my office will appreciate hearing that tomorrow. With respect to the question about a condition and a time limit, we had discussed that with Mr. Sims. I've discussed it with the applicant. We are agreeable to that. We had discussed potentially a 3-year window to be able to start construction on the site from the time that our site plan is approved. We would not have any objection to a stipulation added to the zoning case in that regard.
Well, thank you. Uh-oh, did he change his mind?
Put it in your site plan. Tell us when you have that control. Whatever you come up with. Yeah.
We can define it. We'll define it.
The concern is they're asking, he's, are you the applicant?
Who's the applicant? I sat through it. I know everything they talked about.
So I think for the purposes of this discussion, we would appreciate being able to have the stipulation reference a hospital facility. Within the context of the healthcare rules and regulations, a micro hospital is extremely narrowly defined. It may be the case that as this use gets up and running or as they evolve, that it may be, may fall outside the boundaries of just being a micro hospital. I mean, that's not a term that we have defined in the zoning ordinance per se. And I think we would rather use a term of general applicability in the stipulation. You know, we're willing to provide some color to what type, I mean, it's in our site plan application, which is coming to you in a couple of months, but
Hospital and ER?
hospital and emergency room facilities.
Medical care facility?
Medical care facilities. I mean, we have,
Medical and emergency services. Yeah. So that I'm not bound by the state of Arizona definition.
I can't hear him.
Medical with
Let us,
emergency
this is
services.
first read. Now we
We'll
have
bring-
it.
We'll have
Second.
it fleshed out
We'll
for
come back
second
and I
reading.
think-
yeah, let us flesh it out between now and the first reading, but I think the general idea is that it's a hospital facility, medical care facilities, emergency room facilities, and we
Yeah.
can come back to you with a more well-thought-out definition.
Okay, yeah, the ER is what I'm mostly concerned with. I mean, that's, yeah.
Sure, okay.
Thanks.
Anything else from council? Okay, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any, two?
Michael Johnson?
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to speak up. And not necessarily opposed to this zoning. Something's going to go there sooner or later. So, you know, who knows what could end up being there, if not this micro hospital. I'm a resident of 52nd Street, which is the street straight south. And we already get a lot of traffic that's bypassing Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road. I think with the increased congestion around that intersection, we're only going to get more speeders down our street. And there's not a lot of kids in the neighborhood, but there's a lot of dog walkers, a lot of horseback riders, and all these pickup trucks, work trailers, and so on that are rip snorting down our street just make a lot of noise and make it a less comfortable place to walk your dog. That's really all I have to say, other than when we were here for the earlier meeting, the question was asked, so what is a micro hospital? And it was, well, that will be discussed in the town council meeting. And it seems kind of a fluid thing. I would be kind of interested to know what's definitely in scope, what's definitely out of scope. They've talked about making sure traffic only diverts north on 52nd Street. But that doesn't, like I say, more congestion around that major intersection will just increase the incentive to use 52nd Street as a bypass. But I am curious about what is definitely not a micro-hospital and what definitely is a micro-hospital. Thank you.
I have a question for him. Can I ask a
Mr. Sims, can Councilwoman Roy ask this gentleman a question?
Sure.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Would you and your neighbors be supportive or opposed to speed bumps? Would that help in your neighborhood?
I can't speak for my neighbors. I can speak, the slow down humps or stop signs or whatever to reduce the incentive. It's my neighborhood, so I go 25 down it. I assume my neighbors do as well. So no, I think that would be a good solution to take away the incentive to bypass the intersection.
Thank you.
Next.
Ernie, may I have a response?
Oh.
May I just briefly respond to that comment?
Oh, sure.
So we have been in conversations with the folks that live on 52nd Street. They were among the few that did attend the neighborhood meeting, came to the Planning Commission hearing. We've had some conversations with them. As you will see, our site plan coming forward, and it will be in front of council, I think in September is probably the date that is on the docket for the site plan. Does that sound about right, Luke? Okay. We are getting ready to make a resubmittal of that site plan within the next week or two, and we have worked on some traffic solutions that are specifically intended to address the concerns that we've heard from the neighbors on 52nd Street. So that's not necessarily an issue that we can deal with the zoning request today, but as the site plan comes forward, we will have specific solutions for that. And I think that's the time when we'll have that more detailed discussion about that issue.
That would be great. I think we should seriously consider this gentleman's concerns.
Okay. And we will.
Julie Goldhammer?
Good evening. I'm Julie Goldhammer, and I also live on 52nd Street, and Mike Johnson is my roommate. And he kind of mentioned much of what I was going to speak about. When we went to the council meeting, we were not able to go to the original open house because we were out of town that day. And a couple of our neighbors were also already had left. They do live 6 months out of the year down the street from us. But my two concerns, Mike already mentioned about the traffic, so I don't want to continue to beat on that drum. But it is generally a big concern, and it's been here for a while. We recently moved in and bought our property in October, and we're a little bit further south down the end of 52nd Street. But it's amazing to me that your GPS will actually deflect you around that big intersection. So long ago, when that intersection got a light, the unintended consequences were that anybody that's running late to a meeting or needs to get around will bypass that all day long, including all the motorcycles during that season too, which is an awful lot of fun. So traffic is a concern. The speed bumps would be fabulous, or some other means of preventing those folks from wanting to do that. I think once you put that traffic stop there by Sprouts as well on 53rd Street, that's only going to exacerbate the issue. So my other concern was already kind of brought up, and I think Attorney Bill here had already said that you can't do something contractually, but I think having some sort of a condition, I'm not against having the support of a mini hospital or whatever we're going to call it in the area. I think that's good for growth. I think it's good for Cave Creek, but I think we need to be concerned a little bit about it not just staying a general commercial zone if they don't move in, because I think general commercial in general could be kind of a disaster for that whole area and our neighborhood as well. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all we've got, so I'm going to now close the public hearing. And we're back to council for a motion, and I'll make-
Motion to approve
Okay.
town case number Z 1901 Cave Creek Hospital Zone Change Request, and give first reading to ordinance number 02019-04, and ordinance of the mayor and the council of the town of Cave Creek Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the official town of Cave Creek zoning map by changing the underlying parcel of 4-acre property, parcel 211-46-034B and 211-46-050B from Desert Rural Residential, DR 43 zone to a general commercial GC zone.
Second.
Councilwoman?
Well, I sat through the Planning Commission's meeting, and I thought it was an excellent meeting. I thought that our folks who sit on that commission had varying opinions and so on and so forth. I think the one that was asked by one of the gentlemen who was not necessarily in favor of it, which was, we get no taxes. And then this gentleman stood up and told us that, no, they're for a profit. So that kind of changed things with regards to, I think, planning. But the issue of the different zonings were so minuscule that the need for the change, in my opinion, is correct and the right thing to do. So I look forward to the second reading.
Wonder if we can throw something in there as far as mentioning the condition that we're talking about the 3-year limit, and that they'll hammer
sure.
out, that they'll hammer out the.
Well, in the 3-year limit, I don't think it's going to take you guys that long. You seem like during that meeting you were hot to trot and ready to go, so.
Does the second stand with that condition?
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right. You had the second.
Yes, please do protect that so that should the hospital not take place, we have recourse.
Yep. You had the second comment?
I had the second.
Comment?
My only comment is I think it would be a wonderful addition to our community. I think it's desperately needed. I think most of us have to drive a good 20 minutes to get to Thompson Peak. I think this will be valuable for all of us in this community at all ages, our school system, whenever they have emergencies. I'm really looking forward to it, and I just want to emphasize that we need to consider our community and the people who live in that area because they will be impacted, and we need to be sensitive to that.
Councilman Morris? No? Vice Mayor?
I'd only like to say that I think that it's, this is something that I think the community has needed for quite a while. Right now, you have to go a substantial distance to get to a center where a trauma could be handled. I like the idea that there would be inpatient beds because, you know, you need some ability to stabilize people before they go to a tertiary care facility. Sure. I certainly will vote in favor of this.
Councilman McGuire, do you have comments?
No, I think this is an excellent idea. I think it's a real resource for the community, something that we truly need. Councilman Smith put it very well. And as I said, I think it's going to be important that the rezoning be conditional upon the applicant agreeing to start planning on building a hospital within a reasonable time. That's an important condition. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to tell a little short story here, real quick if I can. In 2001, the city of Tucson had an issue, and the University Medical Center was going to close. It was a trauma center. It was only trauma. Now, this is just an ER we're talking about here, so it's not this level of care, but it was going to go. It was going to go away. It would have been the only trauma center in southern Arizona. A young lady that was on the, or the gentleman that was the mayor of Tucson at the time was a gentleman named Bob Walkup. And amazingly enough, he was a Republican in Tucson, which I know that shocks all of us. But young lady that was a state representative went to Mr. Walkup, Mr. Walkup went to this young lady, the representative, and said, you know, can the state help us with this? And she went back to the state capitol, and together they worked and put together the funds to save the University Medical Center. And the stakeholders got together and they figured out how to get it done. And on January 8th, 2011, she was doing a meeting with the public in front of a grocery store in Tucson, and she was shot in the head. And that's where they took her. I tell you what, we're going to have people that break bones. We're going to have people that get sick. We're going to have people that can use the services this close to us. None of us are getting younger. Last couple of years, I've been healthy my whole life. Last couple of years, I've been in 2 ERs. We don't even want to discuss that. But let's go for a vote on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thanks, Tom. Ayes clearly have it, 6-0. We'll see y'all next time, I guess. And we're going to move on to agenda item number 3. Council consideration and possible approval of resolution number R 2019-13, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Cave Creek and the city of Phoenix for water service interconnect, backup service, and underground storage and recovery. Placed on the agenda by the town manager and the town attorney. Since we know the details, well, a walking ovation.
You're going to miss all the good details.
I know they're going to miss all the good stuff.
Mayor, members of council, I think I'll start, and Sean does have some things to add. So this IGA before you is the second of 2 IGAs that we've worked with the city of Phoenix on. As you know, the first intergovernmental agreement was between the town of Cave Creek and the city of Phoenix that was adopted back in November of 2018 by the town council, and then approved by the city of Phoenix in January of this year. And that set up the framework basically for this intergovernmental agreement by addressing a longstanding issue since Walmart was built, where the town has been serving water in the city of Phoenix water service area. And so we worked through that issue, and we came up with a 5-year strategy to where the city of Phoenix will build the infrastructure that actually gets the water to our southern boundary south of Carefree Highway and to their northern water service area. And then they'll construct the water lines in that area. Cave Creek will dedicate our existing customers to the city of Phoenix, and then transfer the water service accounts to the city of Phoenix. But in that agreement, they promised that they would work with the town of Cave Creek on a second IGA to have an interconnect with the town of Cave Creek so that we could receive potable water and an allocation of the town's CAP water from through the city of Phoenix lines to the town of Cave Creek. So they would treat and deliver a portion of our cap allocation, and they would provide water under emergent conditions, which we have now in this IGA, translates to 90 days of emergency water. And the costs for all of that are detailed in this second IGA. And then the third part about this intergovernmental agreement is that they also came back to the table and agreed that they would recharge our unused portion of our entitlement water, which currently runs around 500 acre-feet. So that is sort of the crux of this IGA. The details we've gone through, the amount of the cost for each of those is in the intergovernmental agreement. I think Sean would like to kind of go through the next step after this IGA would be approved by the council, kind of what's going to happen next. So you get this agreement in place, we complete the construction over the next, it's about 4 years now, get the interconnection to the town of Cave Creek, kind of what's going to happen with that then. So Sean can talk
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Yeah, this is very significant for the town because it does provide that reliability that Carrie talked about at the beginning of the system. So it's not replacing our water treatment capacity, but it's providing the redundancy and reliability to our system. So Phoenix does need to extend water line in Cave Creek up to the bottom end of this 16-inch that we've constructed in front of Walmart. They also need to rebuild a booster station. That's why it's going to take them a few years. They have to build that into their capital program, but they have committed to doing those improvements, and that's what's necessary for them to bring the water up to the bottom end of the service area. In conjunction with that, as part of the capital program, the town has actually built a project to allow us to get to that interconnect. Again, Phoenix will be taking over the infrastructure south of Carefree Highway, so now we've got to get that water. For the interconnect, we have to get that back into our side of the street and back into our system. So as part of the capital program this year, we have a project. It's identified as a 3-year project. It would start this year with a study of how that water gets back into our system, and then potentially purchasing a site for a reservoir booster site for that. And then in the following year, we would kick off the detailed design of that site, with the last year, 3 years from now, being the construction is what we're anticipating. So we're pretty much going to be mirroring what Phoenix will be doing with their improvements. They gave us sort of an outreach of saying 5 years when we first started this discussion. Now we're down to 4 years, but we think we'll probably pretty much be matching them. So we'll be completing the construction of the interconnect site just as they're bringing the water up and have their infrastructure in place. So very significant for us. And again, one of the reasons for this year for doing the study is because, again, we're reversing the flow, bringing water in at the bottom end of our system. So we got to make sure that we can clearly and efficiently bring that in to our system and provide the reliability that we're looking for. And along with that, there is the recharge component, which is exciting, again, so the town can get some beneficial use out of our unused allocation of the CAP, and we can get long-term storage credits. So the way the agreement is structured is that we would, every fall we go to Phoenix, we ask for an allocation that they can put in the ground for us, and then we pay them for that. But then they have to look at what infrastructure they have in place. They've been forthright with us in saying that, you know, they're trying to recharge as much as they can. They have some ability to recharge with us, but then every year we'll discuss with that, and then we'll also determine if there's a cost associated with us putting that water in the ground, which I think is beneficial to the town, but it's actually a cost that we need to also budget. So that'll be something that we bring forward in our future budget requests to council, and that's really the next steps. And I'm not sure if council has any questions.
Only one other thing I'd like to say is that the City of Phoenix has already approved this agreement at one of their city council meeting in June.
All right. Question from council?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I think that this...
How about after we make the motion?
Okay.
We'll try. Okay, so nothing from council. There's public comment on this one. Do we have any? Okay.
Reg Monachino.
Reg Monachino, 5450 East Desert Creek Lane in suburban Cave Creek. Mayor, member of the council, this is one of the most beneficial resolutions to come before council in, I can't remember the last one.
Amen.
And it is largely through the efforts of a couple of people. And first, I'd like to acknowledge the effort of the town manager. She spent days, weeks, negotiating with the 800-pound gorilla called Phoenix, and that is not an easy task. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of Councilwoman Catherine Royer, who worked with the town manager to initiate a much-needed recharge program. Congratulations to both of them.
Thank you, Reg.
Is that it? All right, we're back to council for a motion.
Oh.
Mr. Morris, would you like to make a motion?
I'll be happy to.
Go ahead.
Let's get back to the right page here. Motion to approve resolution number R2019-13, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Cave Creek and the city of Phoenix for water services, interconnection to divert, treat, and deliver entitlement water, backup service to provide emergency water, underground storage, and recovery of entitlement water.
Second.
Hey, good going, Tom. Comments?
I have a couple. This is a long time coming, and it's the best work the town's done. Absolutely. It is a grand slam home run for the town. It is a dramatic improvement when the facilities are in. It's a dramatic improvement in reliability and reduction in the risk the town has for water outage. It may not be quite as apparent, but having Phoenix as a backup is like building additional tanks, because instead of having one day of time before the town is dry, we could have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, depending on the season of the year. So it just, and in a fire season like this, it's a backup to the fire water system. It just hits everything. In addition, it gives an opportunity at the water treatment plant. That needs some real cost engineering to get the cost there, so that one day we're going to have to set rates for all these improvements we have here, and we want to make sure that we've taken advantage of everything we can there. So I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. I can't imagine anybody not voting for this.
Councilman McGuire, you had the second.
Yes, this is a wonderful step forward for Cave Creek. I fully agree with what Councilman Morris said, and I congratulate staff and everyone who worked on this. A job well done.
Councilwoman Royer.
I just wanted to say bravo and congratulations to our town manager and to Sean. You are a dynamic duo. You really know your stuff, and really my part is a champion of Recharge. I campaigned on it. I worked for CAP. I know the value that derives from banking and storing our excess water, which we haven't been able to do. So this is the first step in that process, and I'm so excited about it. I'm so grateful for the work that you did, because it did take a lot of strategy and execution, and it's all because of you. So thank you. It's the first step. I look forward to, I'm setting up a meeting with CAP to investigate other opportunities for Recharge as well. I know it will cost a lot of money. I don't think we can spend our money on anything more important than our water supply.
Councilwoman Clancy.
Oh. Well, we've been working on it for years, so I'm glad it came to fruition, and I'm glad it was with the City of Phoenix. I think the two important issues is the distribution and the receiving of the water through a larger CAP program with our booster stations, which we had approved 2 years ago, and now have begun to build that. But also the recharge. When we looked into it 3 years ago, it was very, very expensive. So this is a very more economic way of being able to do this. And it is through the hard work of staff, and Carrie in particular, and probably being in the district with the same council person, or I should say, yes, council person who represents her area. She pulled out all the stops and came through. Pretty amazing how intervention comes in many, many different ways. So it's something that at least for 4 years or more that we've been looking at and working on, and finally have found a manager who has seen their way through the difficulties of getting us where we need to be today and ensure water for the people who live in our community. And it'll be a clean water. And I'm just really glad that it's come this far.
Vice Mayor.
I just want to pat the existing members of the council and a couple from last year's council on the back for doing a terrific job in hiring a town manager who had the willingness and the ability to sit down and negotiate with Phoenix.
Very difficult.
I know I'm just saying what everybody else has said, Carrie, but you did a fantastic job on this. Thank you.
Very much.
It's a pleasure working with people who are able to achieve things that haven't been achieved before. It's a pleasure to be serving a community that is actually finally able to afford to do the things we could never afford to do before. All of it's coming together. This is financial, or this is not financial. Good grief. It is and it isn't. It is financial. We got to do a roll call on this one. Yeah.
Oh, it is financial.
Yeah.
Yes.
The hidden finance.
Yeah, well.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Clancy,
Yes.
Councilmember Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Bunch.
Yes, by 6-0, motion carries. On to agenda item. Thanks again for all the hard work. Agenda item number 4, council discussion approval of resolution R 2019-12, finally determining and adopting estimates of proposed expenditures by the town of Cave Creek for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020, establishing the alternative expenditure limitation amount and declaring that such shall constitute the adopted budget of the town of Cave Creek for such fiscal year. Mr. Wedigan, I knew you were here. I saw you hiding in the back row.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, this is the final action in adopting the budget. Nothing changed from the proposed tentative, which was accepted, and so I have no additional items to present to you other than to adopt the amount, the amount as the final budget, which is setting the overall maximum expenditure limitation. And then if you look through schedules A through G of whatever budget book you have, whether it's the proposed tentative or the adopted tentative or the proposed final, those schedules A through G that are in the back of the appendix, Schedule D, those are the expenditure limitations as the legal expenditure limitations by fund by department. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The overall amount is still the same at $30,397,132. Any questions?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I kind of
Yes.
got one. I'm probably not supposed to ask you, but look in your crystal ball. You got about 15 days left. Where do you think we're going to end up on this year?
I think it was a great year. I think all of our revenue projections in the general fund are over what was expected. The enterprise funds were about what was expected. I think overall, though, it's one of the best years the town's ever had, if not the best year. I don't have numbers associated with that, but I can.
Expenditure is going to be below the...
Yes, with the exception of legal services.
Well, look, they were real low until we hit the dispute.
It's actually not too bad, actually, but that's the only one that, off the top of my head, that I can think of.
I'm looking forward to October, whenever it is, we get to see those things. Questions from council? We have no questions. All right. There is, oh, wait, this is another public hearing. I'm opening the public hearing on this agenda item.
Eileen Wright.
Good evening, Eileen Wright. Many of us as your residents have always enjoyed the input we got to give as residents to the budget process. This year, there was none. We asked why there was no public input allowed, or it was completely excluded, and we were told on May 21st, 2019, by our finance director that it was a time factor. That is not correct, because by law, you have until today to approve the tentative budget. Arizona law, adopted tentative budget, ARS 42-17101. We had all those 3 months that there could have been a meeting scheduled wherein the council would have allowed the citizens to have input or to learn about the budget. And Per law, your final budget does not need to be approved. It says, final budget, this all comes for the Arizona League of Cities and Towns. There is no specific date set by the state law for adoption of the final budget because we don't have a property tax. So the information we were given that it was a time factor was not accurate. And I would hope in the future it would be allowed that there would be public input again. Thank you.
I agree.
Mr. Sims, I see you making a face there at those comments.
Well, I recall multiple public hearings, and so I think there has been some, and I have no idea what happened at the staff level, but I do know you all have approved a tentative budget and a final budget, and they've been in a public hearing, and so there has been public hearing, but I don't know the conversations that may have occurred at the staff level.
Mayor, Council, if I may qualify with some information, in the past, not always, but in the past, we have had budget workshops earlier in the budget process. Those budget workshops we have made open to the public, and we just didn't have the budget workshop sessions that I believe that's what she's referring to. And although we did have some representation of people within the town manager's budget committee as far as the general public, but also I've not received any calls or emails that I have not responded to relative to any public inquisition into whatever budget document that's been out there, or budget item or line item or any kind of detail whatsoever. So again, if there was a question about the budget, I didn't receive any except from council members, and I believe we've responded or covered them in some way, shape, or form through the public hearing process, as well as in meetings between staff and council members. So,
Any more? That was it. All right. I'm going to close the hearing at this point, and we're back to council for a motion. Vice Mayor?
Motion to adopt Resolution R 2019-12, a resolution of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, finally determining and adopting estimates of proposed expenditures by the town of Cave Creek for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019, and ending June 30, 2020. Establish the alternative expenditure limitation amount, and declaring that such shall constitute the adopted budget of the town of Cave Creek for such fiscal year.
Second?
Second.
Vice Mayor, comment?
Well, since I was lucky enough to be one of the people that worked with the town manager, staff, and Mr. Wedigan in developing the budget, most of it being done by staff, of course, I feel quite secure that this is a good budget. I know that there's been some concern over the fact that the number on the budget appears to have gotten substantially larger than it was in previous years. But what people don't realize is that if we end up making a decision for the town to loan the utilities money and do it in a very rigorous way, we will actually save money for the town, because we've got several millions of dollars sitting in an account right now with a very low interest rate, and inflation hits the money to the tune of about 3% a year. So when you're not making any interest on a substantial amount of money, and you're losing money every year, I figure that over 10 years, we would lose something like $4.5 million. That's not really a very good thing to do with the amount of money that we've got sitting in an account. Robert will probably say I'm totally wrong. But I think that we have made a wise decision in the direction we've taken with this budget.
I'm going to defer the second to Councilwoman Royer.
I agree. I also feel very grateful that I was involved in the budget process. I attended 3 days worth of meetings and listened to the staff presentations and requests. But I must agree that transparency is critical with our public and our community, and that we need to do a better job to have our budget workshops next year. We need to start earlier if it was a timing issue. We need to involve and give our community an opportunity to voice their opinions. And so with that, I do support the budget. I know it's a cap at $30 million. That doesn't mean we're going to spend it all. But I think that we're playing catch up in many ways from years of not having enough money to do important work on our infrastructure, on our water infrastructure, and in our buildings. So it's all important work. We're catching up over time, and I support this budget.
Councilman Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I echo the comments about public input. This budget was not put out to public maybe 4 or 5 days before the council meeting at which the tentative was adopted. And there weren't the public workshop meetings we'd had in the past, which I thought were very, very good. And the third thing, as a councilman, I did not get my questions answered. I did not receive adequate backup on these. I didn't agree with them. I felt that the process this year, having a subcommittee of the council working on this, was flawed. I will oppose it in the future. I think we all ought to have the same information and the same input in the budget process. So I think it was a flawed process. Now, I'm going to vote against this, consistent with my previous vote of the tentative budget. We're going to spend about $17.5 million this year. We're targeting $30.4 million last year. I agree that a number of these things are needed. There's a lot of legitimate projects in here that need to go forward. One of the fine things in this budget is the number of dollars we've gotten in grants. The employees have done a wonderful job there. And those show up as increases, and those, that's something we all ought to applaud. But a 73% increase in a budget, much of it in the water area, and I'm going to make a statement here. There may be someone in the town that has been as big an advocate of the water system as I am, but I'm also an advocate of efficiency and cost control, because someday these numbers are going to hit the rates. We are headed for a day when we're going to have to look people in the eye and say, we've got to raise your rates. And that rate increase will be a monument to any bad decisions that have been made in the past. And that's not just this year, but the previous 10 years, correcting these issues. We seem to be always correcting issues. I'm just going to make one example of why I am going to vote against this. And as I say, there are a lot of things in here that I would vote for, and that is the personnel increases. There was no process, there was no study of staffing. Having done dozens of these in private industry, I've never seen a case where people, well, we got to put more people on. There was no process in that, no study. I'll use a phrase I use quite often: ready, fire, aim. Without analytics, without study, we should not be doing things. So that's the process issue on the personnel. There's a number of personnel being added in here, mostly to the water area. The second one is we have spent millions of dollars on the water system efficiencies already to improve staffing efficiencies. Let me just list some. Look at all the lines we've replaced all over Black Mountain and all over town. There are more millions in the budget coming forward. We've automated the meter reading. We used to do it by hand. We're putting in SCADA systems, which increases efficiency. We're spending $5 million on the CAP system, supposedly going to improve efficiency and reduce maintenance. We put in 3 or 4 pump stations. Those things were all done basis a anecdotal, we're going to save maintenance. Well, now the time has come to recognize that. Where is that recognized in this system when you're increasing manpower that much? It's not. Now, I might still vote in favor of manpower increases, personnel increases, excuse me, if there'd been a demonstrated need to do that, and there was not. So that's the example. There are other things in here. I'm not going to take up any more time. I'm going to be consistent. I think the town can do a lot better job on the process, and we can do a lot better job because this money needs to benefit the people in town. A lot of it will not, in my judgment.
Councilman McGuire?
Yes, I think everyone for their input, that's all well taken. If we can improve the process, particularly in terms of garnering the support of our public. We have been open. I believe we have been transparent. But if the public can come forward more, they certainly are welcome. I will support it. I think it was a good budget. I was pleased to take part in the budget planning meetings.
Councilman Clancy?
I've got to agree with Eileen. Having sat through the process a couple of times, this year's was flawed, and you're absolutely right, because I happened to sit at the same time with Mr. Morris, and the process was with a small group of people who had greater understanding than it was by the time it got to us, who were not part of that process, and then not being able to take that full process and bring it to the public in a roundabout meeting off the dais down below for discussion, I felt was the wrong way to go as well. It's a big budget. It needed to be fully understood so that everyone could have a voice in it, as opposed to it being fragmented, sort of the way it is. I understand the budget being at what it is. Things can be moved around. But again, justification for some things in our particular case was not answered. And it kind of leaves you sitting there thinking, gee, I'd like to pull $10 million out of it just to keep it real. And I understand all of the things that we need to do. I will vote in favor of it, but I would say we have a lot of work to do for next year to make sure that all council people are treated exactly the same, to the same information from the process. It changed so dramatically that it left out some of us, it's just really sitting out in the middle of nowhere again after 3.5 hours of discussion, and it wasn't really answered. So that it just isn't the way to do business fairly for each council person. So that's all I have to say.
First of all, there's a lot of things that haven't been done over the years because we were afraid of what it looked like in public to spend money when we had it showing up and we had a little surplus sitting in the accounts. Last July, end of July last year, at the end of last fiscal year, there was $20 million sitting in the bank. About 12 million or so of it was actually available to the town for spending, but not budgeted. We could have fixed some stuff last year that we wanted to do. We're going a lot deeper into it. We haven't replaced many of the everyday vehicles, the reliability. There's a lot of things in the budget that we haven't done because we've been afraid. We've been gun-shy to actually go ahead and utilize some of that. As far as water improvements go, nobody really much thinks about water until they turn the handle and nothing comes out. We want to make sure that doesn't happen if there's any way we can possibly avoid it. I think we're doing the right thing. As far as process goes, yeah, we could have these workshops that had the same 3 people sitting watching us that only show up every year over and over again. This is financial for sure. Roll, please.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Clancy.
Yes.
Councilmember Royer.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
No.
Mayor Bunch.
Yes, by 5-1, motion carries. And we have somebody make a motion to adjourn.
So
please.
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
So moved.
We're out of here.
Thanks to all.
Good night, Tom. Hey, where are
Wherever you are.
Good.